Welcome to La Grande Bouffe,
the Big Feast.
With myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy. We are here to copiously consume international politics and culture through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer every week. And this week's craft beer, once again, we have a Flying Dog beer. And to my knowledge, this one is new. I have not seen it before, but it's one of my favorite types of IPAs, the Imperial IPA, and it's called NUGGET.
NUGGET. Okay, I'm gonna, on camera, on the audio, give it a little sip.
Give it a taste. See what you think.
Okay.
8.0, so it's got some kick to it. This little baby will get you going.
Do you have any immediate notes that come to mind? I don't have much.
It's got like a little herbal thing going.
Yeah, I was gonna say herbal. That's very vague. Wouldn't you love to be able to break down herbs into varieties, right?
I guess herbal, floral. It has kind of a, to me, it has kind of a floral thing. I think of, I don't know.
I feel like I could distinguish floral versus herbal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar but different. I'll just read what it says on the bottle here. It says, "Okay, Cupid, put that arrow back in the quiver. Nugget is making a comeback and is the perfect match for our single hop Imperial IPA series. The farmers weren't the only ones who knew this one was a keeper. Our brewers fell in love with how the huge spice and, hey, there it is, herbal notes mingle together for this dual-purpose hop."
That copy started in one direction and didn't immediately loop around. And I was thinking, what the fuck are they talking about?
I know
but they landed it. They landed it.
They sure did.
About 4 sentences in. But yeah, okay.
And dual-purpose hop. How can you go wrong with a dual-purpose hop? I love Flying Dog. This is the brewery that uses
the Ralph Steadman
artwork, and I've met one of the owners for this beer, and very nice guy, and I love Flying Dog beers. Love them, love them, love them.
So single hop meaning that there's only one variety in it.
Yep.
So it's going to be kind of
just one kind of
mono
hop.
note in that respect.
Well, but it's a dual-purpose hop, so I guess it's a stereo hop.
Yeah, exactly. Put your headphones on for this beer. I just noticed that your the price tag on here. This is where you buy your beer at the City Swiggers.
Oh yeah, sometimes, not always.
Okay.
There's a few places around the Upper East Side where you can get.
I just think it's
beers.
a cool name, but judging from your reaction, I will ask no follow up.
Please don't.
Okay. What movie did we watch? Because I'm so excited to talk about this movie.
Well, we watched Robert Downey Sr.'s Putney Swope.
The apple falls far from the tree.
Very far from the tree. I think that people misconstrue that Robert Downey Jr. has gone all right-wing Republican-y. I think he made some comment with an interviewer that made it sound like once he got out of jail, he turned to the right.
I think people also conflate him with a billionaire arms dealer in their head pretty solidly.
Well, he certainly is a millionaire, and I think that there is some white privilege that went into him getting out of prison. I think if he had been black, he would not have been treated the way that he was after having broken his parole so many times and getting back on junk. But, more power to him. But we're really talking about Robert Downey Sr.
We are indeed. And this is his opus, as far as I know. It's the only movie of his that I can name. It's
his most popular film, and I think it was his most widely distributed film as well.
And while it's his most popular, and I've heard it brought up in filmmaker circles and film buff circles, and you'll hear Louis C.K. and Paul Thomas Anderson talk about how this is a huge film for them. It is tragically undiscussed
and overlooked.
Yeah, this is an important movie.
It's a very important movie, and it has so much currency, even in today's world, with the way advertising has gone, and is so prescient in the way that it viewed advertising. We're going to get into it in a second. We're going to get into the parameters of the film, which if you haven't seen the poster for it. The poster is great. It's a black and white poster, and it's somebody holding up the middle finger, but there's a woman instead of the middle finger. It's a woman, and it says "Up Madison Avenue."
So the best essay or review I found on this was by Hulk Critic. You're familiar with Hulk Critic? Do you know Hulk Critic?
Hulk?
You don't know Hulk?
No.
He's on Birth Movies Death, but pre-existed that website. He writes in all capitals, like in the grammatical style of the Incredible Hulk. Specifically not Hulk Hogan, but the Incredible Hulk. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
And especially now, litigiously speaking, like or legally speaking, it's definitely not Mr. Hogan. But he's actually a fantastic reviewer, and he pointed out that this movie came at this amazing spot before PC culture in a way that is, well, I think the conversation would be like, is this movie offensive? And that's an important thing to talk about with this.
Well, it's a transgressive movie, and I think all of Robert Downey Sr.'s work, he was a very transgressive activist filmmaker working in that era in the late 60s, early 70s.
69 is when this came out, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
But transgressive, there's not a lot of transgressive films or art or anything that comes close to mainstream culture, I feel like.
No. But now everything is mainstream. I just saw that Multiple Maniacs, John Waters' Multiple Maniacs is going to be showing down at Film Forum, and John, that movie is very transgressive. And when we're talking about transgressive things, we're talking about crossing cultural taboos. So there's nothing that's off limits. Anything that you want to throw at the window, it could, incest or whatever. So yeah, I mean, the thing about transgressive movies is that it's all about crossing cultural taboos. So nothing is, terrorism, incest, anything is, killing cops, which I think it happened in one of Downey's films where a cop was killed. All that stuff is fair game. Nothing is off the table.
And there's something where when it's clear that's your intention, I feel like your hands are very clean. The millennial in me, and I honestly feel nervous talking about this film in a way that I think bespeaks.
Well, you should be. The NSA is gonna, it's gonna come knock on your door someday.
Yeah, I almost wish I thought enough of the NSA that they would be upset about me watching a racist movie.
Which this isn't, by the way.
Which it's not. Which it's not. Because at the end of the day, like, I actually feel like you are completely misunderstanding or just not even having seen this movie if you're having that conversation. So I just want to put an end to that, because I think that's not the conversation to have about it.
Well, we have to consider the time that it was made. It was made during the height of Black Power in 1969, and this is when people, I don't know where John Waters was in his career, but he was coming along, and he was, this film Multiple Maniacs is showing at Film Forum, and Dusan Makeyev's Sweet Movie came out in 1974. There was a big social movement of activist filmmakers who were making, I don't even know necessarily if it's an activism. I guess obviously there's a lot of political underpinnings to it, but these are artists who are trying to expand their art. I just saw that Alan Vega of Suicide died, and I've kind of been on a Suicide kick. Suicide's a two-man punk band, and very interesting to listen to Alan Vega talking about how he created his art in the punk movement. And I think that what's going to happen in today's culture is there has to be some kind of resurgence of this appreciation for transgressing art. We need it. It's good. It's good for us. You got to break things.
Yeah, I think we're in. I'm not one to critique PC culture, but I totally am at the same time, and we're at an interesting spot where it is the most liberal fringe, which is guarding what you say for better and worse. God, it's so crazy. I'm honestly nervous right now in saying this, which is first of all, I know our audience base isn't huge, and I know you guys love us too. But I'm only saying this to express what it is to be alive in the current zeitgeist of my age, which is like this incredible anxiety about saying the wrong thing and coming off the wrong way. And there's,
that's how it is.
To have this freedom, like in '69, to make this, and just that fucking passion that you're seeing.
But that's how it was. You know, in the '60s, it was the Warhol era. There were a lot of people walking around Manhattan just looking for stuff to do, and the sky's the limit. You could do anything. And now I feel like we've all been locked down into social media, which I have to say, there's a lot of aspects of social media that I find just so toxic. I think that social media it's not really a great thing. It's okay. It's an okay thing, but it's not a great thing.
It's norming and polarizing, and to me it's getting to a point where you want to figure out how to incisively split it in half and annihilate it in a way that this film, I think, does in this amazing way, where it's looking at a couple different things that it's saying fuck you to. It's saying fuck you to Madison Avenue for shoving the most toxic, terrible things, the cigarettes, the booze, and the fucking
weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, war toys. Yeah, I love how he reduces it to war toys. It's a great way of taking.
Well, he means two things. He means the AR-15, know, which I'm sure wasn't out yet, but the equivalent, and also, like, it really was a campaign. I'm not.
10 years later, there was
kids to be shooting toy guns.
Like, but also you had Ronald Reagan, going to his advisors and saying, "Hey, there's this movie Star Wars. Can we do a Star Wars thing?" You remember, like, the Ronald Reagan Star Wars program?
Do you know those advisors were literally? I wish I knew their names, but they were literally science fiction writers.
It's ridiculous. It's so silly. But everyone took that shit seriously. It was reported on the news very, 60 Minutes or whoever. I mean, it was 60 Minutes. It was reported very honestly and earnestly. This is what we're going to do.
Well, I mean, can you imagine?
It was all bullshit.
Can you imagine 2 years ago when the guy from Ancient Aliens is in charge of the NSA? Like, I'm sure we'll have things that'll really top that.
All right, so we have to come clean and tell you guys that we had a ridiculous technical glitch that occurred.
It happens to all of us.
Where we filled our card and the recording stopped, and we'd gotten 10 minutes past
of gold.
You guys missed out, and we did too, because we'll never know what we said.
Remember that? Well, I gave you instructions for the like fountain of youth. Did I tell you that? Yeah, I remember that. I was telling you that, and then I hit my head in the bath. It's gone. It's fucking gone.
So now, so we recorded some, and it got lost, and now we're starting over. So let's just get back to the parameters of the film. So Putney is he's on the board for this Madison Avenue ad agency, and who knows what he does before he gets elected. But the head of the company dies in the board meeting, and everybody votes, and they tell us the rules for how they vote.
So you can't vote for yourself is kind of the only rule. So everyone assumes. I really hope we didn't already talk about this. But
yeah, it doesn't matter.
If we did, you're welcome.
Yeah.
There's a reason alcohol is inherent to this podcast. So
and we've been drinking the whole time, so we're farther along than we were.
So no one assumes Putney would get any votes, which of course means he gets all of the votes, and he's in charge, and they stick to the rules. And the conceit of the movie, right, is what if the worst fear of these lily white Madison Avenue people came true, and the black radical took over, and the airwaves are splashed with black radical nationalism, with Muslim, with interracial Acne commercials, with naked women of every pigment.
See, now you hit on my favorite scene, which if I talked about it before, I'm going to talk about it again.
Lucky Airlines.
Face Off, the acne queen, where it's Martha Plimpton's mother, who was in a production of Hair at the time. I guess it was off Broadway. Maybe it was on Broadway. I don't know. It had to be off Broadway. And so Downey saw her in the play in Hair and took her and the black actor. And a large conceit of the movie is that it's all shot in black and white, but all the commercials that Putney makes are in color. And so you've got the beautiful white 60s hippie chick with the cool black guy with kind of the Chinese collar shirt, and they're singing this great song about how, he's singing how she flashed him her beaver at the Harvard Yale game and he'll never be the same, and she sings about how he dry humped her behind the hot dog stand, and it's so beautiful.
It's super sexually progressive. It has like interracial things that at the time would have been fucking but I think they were a character read from that 70s show.
I think people,
furious.
Well, of course, the Archie Bunkers of the world were furious. But I think that that was the height of the 60s, 1969, when this film was released. I think people dug that stuff. The movie showed it opened at the Cinema 1 and 2 on 3rd Avenue at 60th Street. And it was Downey's most popular film, and it was equal parts black and white audiences. It attracted the right crowd.
It's a wild, fun ride.
It really is super fun.
It just escalates.
I'd love to see this movie on a big screen with a mixed audience. I would really be. I would be fascinated to see what people laugh at and how an audience live audience responds.
Mixed in terms of young and old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just didn't know
everything. No, just a
one of those new integrated
like that crowd, like a crowd of 1969. What that would have been like to sit with that crowd.
I can't imagine. Like, this is such a window to such a specific time, and some of the jokes. I wrote down a couple of my favorite jokes, which are really like pushing it. Some of them just for the time, and some of it in general. One of my favorite jokes, which is pretty crazy, is so there's this character you don't see for the longest time who is you only hear about as having had done something terrible, and Putney has to like resolve it. So it's like so and so was caught flashing in like a Macy's or something like that. And then one of the crazy ones is so and so he was caught in a hotel in the Bronx with a 13-year-old girl, and Putney's line is, "At least he's not superstitious."
Well, all right, so we have to I don't know if we've talked about this before, our friendly audience, but Robert Downey Sr. dubbed all of the dialogue for his lead actor because the guy couldn't remember.
He couldn't remember his lines.
Well, that was the excuse that Downey Sr. Gave, but Arnold Johnson is the actor, and he was in Shaft. Arnold Johnson gives a great performance in this movie, and I think it adds a lot of texture that it's Downey Sr. who's doing the voice for Johnson.
Well, it's also a lot of removal, and it does make you think again that this is a movie written and directed by a white man starring predominantly people.
He's got a great gravelly kind of black voice, like an old man black voice.
And in Swope is a cartoon of the worst thing that could happen, and it's so
the worst and the best. I mean, if you're if you were a Black Power person, you're looking at this movie, you got your fist up,
right? And so it's a weird line that it draws, because on one hand the argument is making that power corrupts all equally, because Putney is not actually some perfect idea of what the Black Power movement could have as a leader, because he's stealing everyone's ideas. He's doing this classic Roger Sterling
but he's very
bullshit.
Calculated. You get the impression that Putney Swope knows exactly what he's doing. He has a plan. He's not just doing this stuff. He goes in, he fires everyone. He has a real sense of when someone pitches him an idea, and pretty much everyone that pitches him an idea gets fired. My personal favorite scene is when I'm lying, because it's my second favorite, because I already said my first with the commercial, but is when the white guy comes to Putney and they're sitting and they have the little thing with the balls that the clacker, whatever that thing
Newton's balls.
Is that what it is?
I think they call them Newton's balls.
Oh, and you pull one off to the side and there's like 5 balls and it makes the other one. They swing back and forth. I had one. No, they don't make the thing click. But I had one of those when I was a kid, and so the white guy is asking for a raise, and Putney's like, he
does it so perfect. Yeah.
Oh my God, he schools the guy. He says, listen, if I gave you a raise, then I'd have to give everybody else a raise. We'd be right back to where we are now. And the guy's like, I didn't think of that. And he said, well, that's why you don't deserve a raise. And the guy completely gets it. You don't think. Yeah, you're not thinking.
Yeah, there's a lot of that where these are scenes that you're used to seeing with like a white patriarch saying to a black man or to a woman.
That's right.
And it reads as just like, oh, these assholes. And then they flip it. And like that's like a I don't know if the word satire is right, but that's a genre in itself. Do you remember this movie that came out a couple years ago where it was this French short film, and it was if men and women were all flipped in society, and like a man goes jogging, and then a woman is jogging like topless and sees him and like whistles at him and like slaps his ass, and it's supposed to, and it's effective. It goes like, oh, like that is what the world actually looks like to the other half, so there's a bit of the movie which is this sort of like serious tone.
It's a flip. You're flipping everything.
They have a white maid who they treat like shit, and
I love the white maid her black master treats like dirt.
Yeah, and it would be such a both more familiar and like tragic movie if it was a white homeowner treating her black maid like this.
And she's Russian too. And so when the Russian maid gets her chance to speak on camera, she's talking to the media. She has a different story to tell. She's not gonna sell herself out. She understands that she's got a good thing going, and she's gonna play the game.
Yeah, and so part of the movie is that flip. Another part is just these crazy fucking jokes. And then also just this weird attitude, this weird distance between the actors. Partly because we were talking before about like a lot of them are amateur actors, and there is this consistency of.
But it doesn't matter. All those amateur performances don't matter. You can tell that Downey shot a lot of this stuff guerrilla style. But by the same token, he's got a Rolls Royce that they use, and I love that car. He's got this amazing Rolls Royce. I don't know what era that car is from. Maybe the 40s, where the front of it is a convertible, and then where the chauffeur is, but then the back part is enclosed. It's a beautiful car.
So that makes me think about the other thing to talk about this film, in addition to being anti-establishment and so transgressive. This was one of the first independent films like of big note. Like this movie was
That's a good point.
100% studio free. But it clearly had a budget, not a huge budget at all. But they had a Rolls Royce, they had sets, they clearly found people. And I'd love to know who funded this movie, because who funded this movie?
Right. No, it's a good question. And there's so many interesting people that are in the film. Antonio Fargas, who's most famous for his Starsky and Hutch. He was the pimp on Starsky and Hutch, if you ever watch any of those old episodes. And he plays the Arab, the much maligned Arab in this movie, which is interesting because, plot spoilers ahead, Putney is putting all of his money away. He's saving all the cash. And at the end of the film, when it comes time for
throwing it into a basketball hoop, like
it's a giant tower, like a plexiglass
prism
tower where you can see all the cash going in. He's got armed guards standing around with guns, and their only job is just to guard the cash. They're not going to steal it; they're guarding it. And one of them is the Arab. He calls him the Arab, but he's Antonio Fargas. I mean, he's a black guy, don't give any money to the Arab. So what does the Arab do? The Arab bombs the money. He blows the money up. But of course, by that time, Putney has taken his share, which in today's world, once Putney creates this success for himself and takes the money, but he shares it. And of course, in today's world, that would never happen. You would never see the money, and it would all just be the banker who ran off with it and put it in the Caymans.
So, I'm not going to claim I have like a completely coherent analysis of what's going on with all of these stereotypes flying against each other and how we are supposed to come away with it.
Well, the president is a midget.
He's a little person, Cole.
I'm sorry. Right.
He's a little person.
Excuse me. I have slipped from my politically correct.
Yeah, that's why I'm on this podcast.
My politically correct perch. I think it's important.
I'm trying to make you trend for the right reasons.
I think it's very important to note that Mike is a millennial. I'm a Gen Xer.
And I'm much closer to being a little person than you. That's more to do with it than anything.
Mike's half my age, exactly, almost. Mike's 26. I'm 53 on.
Oh yeah, this is
on
our
Tuesday.
This is our note, was to push. Oh, I didn't know that. Happy birthday!
Thank you, sir. I will be 53, and Mick Jagger will be 73. We share the same birthday, and Mick is exactly 20 years older than I am. So whenever I have a birthday, I always make sure that I take a minute and reflect on exactly how old Mick Jagger is, because that guy is amazing. I want to be like that guy when I'm 73.
There you go.
Yeah.
When you grow up, you can be just like him.
That's right.
So before we wrap up, I just want to bring up a very high-minded idea that I can't totally tie any ribbon on at all, but this movie is somehow showing that we shouldn't be afraid of the changing values. There's a poster that shows up a bunch of times with the almost Bob Dylan quote, the things are changing, and also that we should not have this white patriarchy leading Madison Avenue and all our values. But it doesn't do that by making a movie where this alternative culture takes over and everything goes great. And in fact, everything goes to hell kind of in another direction. Though Putney also maintained his values throughout it. And it reminds me of this. This is where I get high-minded.
Well, no, wait a minute. Putney doesn't really maintain his values, because in the beginning he says
he doesn't make ads for booze or cigarettes or
war
toys. That's the one thing he
war
sticks
toys.
to.
But by the end he reneges on that.
Well, does he though? He
says he
it's
does.
a test. So I don't know.
He tells his staff that he's reneging on it.
He says he goes to his new board and tells him, we are making this stuff.
Right.
And then he leaves and he tells his new second in command, because the first one couldn't find a gun if it fell out of his pocket.
Yeah, with the string attached.
Which is interesting. It's the whole thing about, like, these
way,
guys are all thugs, but they're clearly playing a role too. It's like they are societally supposed to be these black militants who are competent with weapons, but they're also playing a role. I think that's an important thing. Is like these characters aren't really the people that they're supposed to be.
Right. They're kind of lazy workers. They're lazy at their job.
Well, they're lazy, but they're also not actually all like violent criminals. You see them but they know they need to pretend to be so. And Putney also knows he needs, like, he's the only black guy in charge of Madison Avenue. He's got to suddenly put on African clothing and like put on and be talking this big game.
By the end, he's Fidel Castro.
He's Fidel Castro. Maybe
he's on his way to Cuba. Maybe that's where he's going to take all his money.
He is or he isn't. He is or he isn't selling out his values at the end. Maybe he is going to make these commercials.
Now I really wish that he'd done a Putney Swope sequel.
Oh, I know.
I want to know what happened to Putney.
But what's ultimately redeeming in this very paradoxical way is that Putney sells out because he's a person who was in Madison Avenue to begin with, who was of that value anyway. Where it's almost like more prejudice and racist to be like, no, he's this ideological perfect savior figure that's gonna fix everything. He's a human being, and
he's an opportunist.
He was on Madison Avenue to begin with. You really think he got there by being a saint that just kept his mouth shut?
I think that's how he got there. Yeah, I think that he played his cards right, and
I think he was a non-saint that kept his mouth shut.
He knew what was before him. He was an opportunist who was in the right place at the right time and knew how to play his cards. And at the end, he got his big old duffel bag of cash and split. And do you think he's staying in the United States? I don't think so. Putney did not move to Florida. My perception is that Putney took that money to a third world country where he lived large.
And isn't paradoxically
with naked women.
Somehow that's the more progressive argument to make. I don't know how it makes sense, but it's like the much more less fun version of this movie is like, no, let's have a thing where a black guy runs an ad company and he makes it great, and we see more people of color, and like there's a more sex positive vibe, and it's wonderful. It's like, well, is it going to be funny? Like, what is it? Somehow this makes you more comfortable with alternative culture by showing you the worst case ridiculous scenario.
I don't even think it's worst case. I think, I think that if you look at, we talked about before about how Downey uses, the film is in black and white, but all the commercials that Putney makes are in color, and they all have black people in them. And I think by showing that, by putting that sense of equality and justice, he sets the record straight in 1969 and says, this is how shit is, and this is how shit will be. And if only there were other filmmakers doing the same thing, if there could have been a movement of filmmakers that were doing stuff like that, I don't think that we would be in this place, this horrible, terrible fucking place where we are today, where all cops are corrupt by default, because we've been living in a calculated system of incremental genocide of black people that's been going on for decades, and only now are people waking up to it because that information is being aggregated by a UK media outlet, The Guardian. And I wish that there were more Robert Downey Sr.'s in the world, and it makes me sad that his son, who, I mean, I've heard, I know people who were living in Chelsea in the early 80s, and Robert Downey Jr. used to saunter out of his Chelsea apartment very bisexually, dressed very scantily, and sauntering down the sidewalk.
Play both teams?
And it's all anecdotal, but yeah, I mean,
oh, Cole, I meant to bring this up earlier.
Yeah.
What celebrity do you think I get told I look like the most?
I have no idea. Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, you don't see it?
No. He's not Jewish.
Neither am I, dude.
You are.
No, I'm not.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh. My wife is 10% Lithuanian Jew, which we just found out a few weeks ago.
I didn't mean to act like
kind
it
of
was
exciting.
an insult. Like,
No.
I usually tell people I am if they ask.
No, well, you do such a great Woody Allen impression.
Well, thank you. Not everyone agrees.
Really?
Moby.
Aw. Moby doesn't like your Woody Allen impression?
No, I was just calling you a celebrity you look like.
I used to get Giovanni Ribisi. Before that, it was Jack Nicholson, of course, because anyone who doesn't have hair is automatically Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, I saw everyone who's listening to this. Can they find that video of you in Cannes 20 years ago when you had hair?
Oh, it was longer than that ago. Sheesh, that was like 92.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that online?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
I'll leave it to you if you're gonna leave out the key terms to find that. But
I don't think you have just like Cole Smithey can, and it'll come up. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, this was a very delightful episode, and I can't encourage all of our listeners enough, because this stuff is available online, to go and search out Robert Downey Sr.'s works on, because you can see a lot of his films, a lot of these early films, these very provocative movies on YouTube. And what a genius. It makes me want to really dig into his films, because I've seen this movie once before and really happy that we included it in the podcast and to see it again, and really makes me want to dig into his films more. And it's great that his son's one of the highest paid actors in the world, but Robert Downey Sr., 80 years old, still alive, still living in New York, and more power to Robert Downey.
You gotta get him, man.
Robert Downey Sr. Let's get that guy on this podcast.
I would love if we had communication on our Facebook page and Twitter about this movie. I want to know what people think. I want to know if you think it's awesome. I want to know if you think it's terrible, if you don't get it, if you think it's offensive. I think it's a very important movie. I think everyone is getting into marketing in some way. If you're on social media, the sort of conflict of interest, in little ways, they're in all of our lives. And I think this movie is almost uncomfortably present. And I want to know what you think.
Let's do it, guys. Thanks for listening. Remember to turn your cell phones off when you're walking, driving, or watching a motherfucking movie.
When I'm walking?
Yeah, don't fucking be on your cell phone when you're walking. What are you talking about?
It's different than being off. Yeah, I got yelled at like 4 times a day for being on the wrong side
don't
of the staircase.
Do that. You'll get hit by a car. You got to be on the podcast, man. If you get killed, I'm screwed. Like, no more Grande Bouffe, Big Feast.
Yeah, you won't have anyone to fuck up your recordings anymore.
Yeah, I also like to give one more shout out to Flying Dog for the single hop NUGGET Imperial IPA. I love Imperial IPAs, and this one is my new favorite by far.
Oh, like and follow us on Facebook, on iTunes, please.
And SoundCloud.
And SoundCloud, and all of the forums where you can. Shout us out, follow us, and encourage your friends too as well.
We're very excited about some upcoming co-hosts that we have. So rock stars are going to be on this program soon.
They're co-hosts.
That's right. They're co-hosts.
They're co-hosting. Yeah.
Yeah, they're choosing movies for us.
Yeah,
they're making our lives easier.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, like no spoilers. They're picking movies I've already seen. So God bless them. They're not cool making me like dig in the deep web to find some stuff. All right, guys.
Thanks for listening.